Ash Ketchum has come a long way as a Pokemon trainer, and with his growth, the anime itself has also evolved. But today, I wanted to take things back to a simpler time. A more indigo time, if you will. Recently, I found an amazing ROM hack called Pokemon Ash Gray, which covers the major events of every single episode in the original series. As someone who grew up watching the anime, I was super excited when I heard about this. There are specific conditions to trigger some events, but I'll get to those as they come. Before jumping in, let me know what your favorite episode of Pokemon is. No matter what season it's from, it's just fun to reminisce. Also, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe if you want to see more. I'd really appreciate it. With all that said, let's get into it. The game opens with us in our room on the night before we get our very first Pokemon. Just like the first episode of the show, we change into our pajamas but stay up late watching a Pokemon battle. As we dream about which starter we'll end up with, our eyes suddenly open and we're late to meet Professor Oak. Still in our PJs, we run to the lab and get taunted by Gary, who's just setting off on his very own journey. The professor tells us the only Pokemon he has left is an unruly Pikachu, but we tell him we'll take it, and so begins our adventure. On Route 1, we get attacked by a wild Spearow, but Pikachu isn't exactly listening to us. Eventually we take it out, but now an entire horde of birds are after us. I pick up Pikachu and make a run for it, jumping into a nearby river and swimming across the route until we find Misty. We steal her bike, and while rushing Pikachu to Viridian City, he takes down a few more Spearow, and then we see Ho-Oh in all its glory. After healing Pikachu at the Pokemon Center, we're ambushed by Jesse and James, who will be fighting a lot in this game. I'm gonna skip most of these battles. Pikachu takes care of their Ekans and Coughing with Thunder Shocks, and Team Rocket is blasting off. For the first time. In Viridian Forest, we get our very first catch, Caterpie, who quickly evolves into Metapod. We also find a wild Pidgeotto, so now we have Ash's official squad of 3. Then we go up against the Samurai and his Pinsir, but unlike the anime, we can't break the bug's horns with a Metapod hardened, so we gotta take him out the old-fashioned way. After his defeat, the Samurai warns us of an incoming Beedrill swarm, and for some reason, we think it's a great idea to use Metapod's Harden. Yeah, he just got snatched. Luckily, we find our Chrysalis outside the Samurai's house and then take the Beedrill down. Once we get through the rest of the forest, we meet a man named Flint who seems to be a rock salesman. He laughs at us for saying we can defeat Brock, and then we continue on to the city. We challenge the gym with our underleveled Pikachu and are utterly destroyed by Onix. As we leave, Flint tells us about how Brock's father left the family to become a trainer and his mother passed away, leaving the gym leader to care for his 9 younger siblings all by himself. Then he takes us to the city's generator, where we're given the light ball to boost Pikachu's electric attacks. Now it's time for our rematch with Brock. After taking his Geodude out without being hit, the sprinklers start going off in the gym. Brock's siblings try to make us stop our match, but the leader continues and we manage to defeat his Onix. Just then, Flint barges in, revealing he's Brock's long-lost father, and he's finally chosen to support his family so his son can pursue his dreams of becoming a Pokemon breeder. With that settled, we finally have our first badge and can continue on towards Cerulean City. Outside Mount Moon, we save Seymour the scientist from a wild Zubat, and he asks us to help the Clefairy protect the Moonstone within the cave. Of course, Team Rocket is up to no good, but the Clefairy use Metronome to send them blasting off again, and then Seymour tells us he's gonna live with the Pokemon. Sure. In Cerulean, we're offered the Cascade badge for free, but staying true to the plot, we say no. Misty reveals herself to be the 4th sensational sister and challenges us for the badge. Ash decides to use Pidgeotto and Butterfree for this fight, so that's who I went with too. Her Staryu leads with a water gun as Butterfree puts it to sleep. Then it just takes a few gusts to get the KO. Next is Starmie, who also hits water gun, but we connect a second sleep powder. Then I swap to Pidgeotto, who gets Misty's ace into the red before going down, and Butterfree finishes it off with Gust. Immediately after we win, Team Rocket busts in with their giant vacuum cleaner to try to steal all the water types, but we make easy work of their team. Outside of town, we beat AJ and his very overleveled Sandshrew, and then meet Joe, who's running on a treadmill while being quizzed. Poor guy doesn't even know what a Zubat is. The top student at Pokemon Tech, Giselle, insults us and our Pikachu, so we body her Cubone and move on. From here, we find ourselves in the Hidden Village, where Bulbasaur protects the weaker grass Pokemon. Melanie suggests we take Bulbasaur with us, so I catch him in battle and we add our first starter to the team. Then we come across Charmander, who refuses to leave the rock he's on. At a nearby Pokemon Center, Damien tells us he abandoned the fire type for being weak, so we run back to rescue him from the storm? Yeah, it's not raining. We heal up at the Pokemon Center and Damien comes back, pretending he cared about Charmander the whole time. After beating him in a battle for custody, he runs off crying and Charmander can finally rest easy. Immediately after, we run into the notorious Squirtle Squad who play a prank on us and run away. We fish up their leader in a nearby pond, but he seriously injures Pikachu and escapes to a cave close by. When we find the two, Squirtle says he'll allow us to treat Pikachu's wounds, and after seeing how much we care for our Pokemon, he decides to join us too. On the beach outside Vermilion City, we catch Krabby before making a stop at Bill's lighthouse. After saving the Pokemon researcher from his Kabuto costume, he tells us about a giant Pokemon he's been waiting to meet. Spoiler, it's Dragonite. We bid Bill farewell and prepare to challenge Lieutenant Surge. I promptly lose to his Raichu, which triggers the event where Nurse Joy gives us a Thunderstone so we can evolve Pikachu. In my opinion, this is one of the best moments in Pokemon. Ash decides to let Pikachu choose for itself whether it wants to evolve or not, instead of forcing it to change just for power. Obviously choosing not to evolve, I grind my team a bit, but make a terrible mistake as I evolve Charmander way too early. Since Ash's Charmeleon and Charizard are extremely disobedient, the Pokemon will no longer listen to me. I didn't want to deal with this while trying to level up, so this is pretty much the end of the Firestarter's use for this run. Don't worry though, we don't miss out on any events because of it. Surprisingly enough, Bulbasaur is able to single-handedly take down Raichu after living on 1 HP and putting it to sleep, so Pikachu didn't get to play a part in our third gym battle. Our next stop is the St. Anne, where after a battle with this gentleman, we trade Butterfree away for Raticate. It turns out Jesse and James were the ones giving out tickets so they could steal everyone's Pokemon on board. After beating them in another battle, there's a problem with the ship. We quickly find the gentleman again and request a trade back since we have great memories with Butterfree and want to make more. Thankfully he accepts, and as the captain says this ship is unsinkable, wouldn't you know, we capsize. I find my way out, and as I'm swimming to floating debris, we see James throw a Magikarp into the ocean, which evolves into Gyarados and attacks in a blind rage. After beating it, the sea monster calls on 3 more Gyarados who knock me out. When I come to, I'm on an island with a Slowpoke and... was that a Zapdos? Also, what's with this giant Pikachu? We get off the island of giant Pokemon and arrive at Porta Vista. This old man needs help getting his restaurant up and running, so we bring in customers and then meet Nastina, who asks us to help exterminate the Tentacool interrupting her construction. Of course we say no, but then a giant Tentacruel attacks the island. We calm it down and get the construction project shut down, so score 1 for the environment. With that craziness out of the way, now we catch a ride to Maiden's Peak. Legend has it the ghost of Maiden's Rock haunts men who pass by, and we actually see it. After getting the spell tag from an old woman, the ghost turns out to be a Ghastly who reveals it actually fabricated the whole legend for kicks. Now it's time for a serious episode. We buy a yellow scarf and give it to Butterfree to hold. Then we take him to where all the Butterfrees mate so he can find his one true love. We release our first catch so he can be with the one-of-one pink Butterfree, and with tears in my eyes, we wish him the best and carry on. Bye-bye, Butterfree. In Saffron City, we're captured by Team Rocket, but a strange little girl rescues us and disappears. Before entering the gym, an old man runs up to us and suggests we stay away from Sabrina. If you know anything about Ash, of course we don't listen, and when we find the gym leader, it turns out to be the little girl from earlier. I'm supposed to lose this battle, but I actually end up winning with a slam from Pikachu, but that doesn't change the event from triggering. The child Sabrina tells us that she shrunk us down and put us in her toy town. We eventually run into the old man from earlier who is able to teleport us back to the real world. Then he tells us that in order to beat Sabrina, we'll need to go to Lavender Tower and catch ourselves a ghost type. Great. We pull this rope and a Haunter appears who proceeds to pull our soul out of our body. We explore the creepy playground and then Haunter brings us back to our body and joins the party. After returning to Saffron for a rematch, Haunter disappears as the battle starts, leaving us helpless. I got Pikachu up to a pretty high level, so he wins with a slam. Just as Sabrina is going to turn us into a doll again, Haunter appears and begins to make her laugh. The old man who is helping us tells us that he's actually Sabrina's father, and she merges with her child self, becoming whole. With 4 badges in hand, we continue on our journey where we pick up the Tasty Donut. As a kid watching the dub, it never occurred to me that these are actually onigiri or Japanese rice balls. Anyway, we feed it to this Mankey who proceeds to steal our hat. After trying to catch it, the monkey evolves into Primeape and then we manage to get it in a ball. It was only a short walk to Celadon, where our first order of business as a 10-year-old boy is to say that perfume is terrible. Unfortunately, that stunt means I'm not allowed in the gym, but Team Rocket decides to help me by disguising me as a girl so I can take on Erica. Her lead Tangela is unnecessarily strong, but after putting it to sleep with Bulbasaur, Pikachu is able to take it down. Then Pidgeotto KOs her Weepinbell and Erica sends out her ace, Gloom. We managed to sand attack the weed a few times and hit a wing attack before going down to sludge bombs. Then after a few more misses, Pikachu brings home the win. As the battle ends, Team Rocket breaks in and actually sets the gym on fire. Not to mention Erica neglects her Gloom and leaves it here to die. We save the plant and then are finally given the Rainbow Badge. One of the buildings in town belongs to a group who call themselves the Pokemon Lovers Club, and their favorite Pokemon is Hypno. Unfortunately, nobody realized using its hypnosis to help adults sleep made kids think they're Pokemon and run away from home. We used Drowsy's Dream Eater to save the kids, but all I can really wonder is what was Hypno trying to do? Somebody call Officer Jenny. On the next route, we meet Anthony and his Hitmonchan who are training to be the P1 championship winners. His daughter Rebecca begs him to stop training and come home, but he refuses until he becomes champ, so she asks us to beat him. Wait, doesn't that just mean he'll never come home? Well, I don't really care either way. After beating 4 other trainers in a row with Primeape, including Team Rocket who somehow got their hands on a Hitmonlee, it was finally time to face Anthony. We focus energy as Hitmonchan uses Ice Punch. Then after a Mach Punch, 2 Cross Chops are all it takes to be crowned champ. Anthony says he'll go back to his family, but asks us to leave Primeape with him so he can turn it into a real P1 champ. Dude, we just beat you. I oblige and part ways with Primeape so he can keep getting stronger. Nurse Joy tells us that this nearby Pokemon Center has lost power and suggests we investigate the power plant to see if we can help out. In the plant, we meet 2 scientists who say the reason why the power is out is that muck is blocking the seawater intake. I battle the pile of sewage and just like the real Ash, I catch him and send him off to Oak's place. Once we leave the power plant, I run into a construction worker who says he's struggling to build a dam because of the Diglett in the surrounding area. It turns out the ground moles are actually creating a beautiful garden in the mountains, and if the dam were to be constructed, the environment would suffer. The construction worker actually comes to reason and cancels the project as we continue on toward Fuchsia City. On the way there, we run into this large building that has a strange inscription on the statues. I immediately figure out that you need to talk to the back of the statue, and then I'm challenged by a ninja named Aya. Her Venonat gets destroyed by Pidgeotto, and then she gives us a little hint about how to get to her brother, the leader of the dojo. When we make it to the center of the room, Koga appears and reveals himself to be the Fuchsia City gym leader. He says that if we can beat him in battle here, he'll grant us the Soul Badge, so we jump right in. Pidgeotto leads against his Venomoth, but is only able to get a Sand Attack and a Wing Attack off before going down. Squirtle and Bulbasaur both get one-shot by Signal Beam, and then Muck actually survives the super effective Psybeam and hits a Body Slam. At around 40%, the Bug type goes down to a Thunderbolt from Pikachu, which just leaves the Ninja Master with Golbat. The Poison type lands Confuse Ray, but Pikachu breaks through for a Thunderbolt that just isn't enough to kill. Next turn, our best buddy breaks through again for a Quick Attack, which earns us our 6th badge. On Route 9, we meet Lara Laramie at the Big P Ranch. After being taunted by some guy on a Dodrio, we calm Ponyta down and offer to race in Lara's place. This was actually super fun. Basically every time you move, the opponent does too, so after a few attempts of finding the optimal route, it was an easy win. This next event is a personal favorite of mine. We run into 2 parents who lost their son Tommy 5 years ago on this Pokemon reserve. Apparently the boy has been spotted with some wild Kangaskhan, and we've been asked to keep an eye out for him. We enter the Safari Zone where the warden threatens to shoot us. Fun fact, this episode was banned from the English dub of the anime. I guess to make it more PG, the creator of this game gave him a Thunderbolt revolver instead of a real gun. While exploring the wilderness, we come across Tommy and the Kangaskhan. When we tell him he has human parents, he runs off with Mama Kangaskhan to see for himself. Rumor has it that a Dratini lives in the lake at the end of the Safari Zone, but that area is restricted. Upon arrival, we see Team Rocket threatening to set off an electrical bomb to make all the Pokemon in the lake faint. We beat them, but they still end up throwing the bomb in. Just then, Dragonair surfaces and chucks the device back at Jesse and James, making them blast off again. The Warden thanks us for protecting his beloved Dragonair, and then we leave the area. Oh, you thought I forgot the most important thing. Don't worry, I took the time to catch 30 Tauros, just like Ash. But wait, what happened to Tommy? Well, his human parents decided they're also gonna live out the rest of their days with the Kangaskhan. Rational decision making. Before leaving Fuchsia, Nurse Joy asks us to bring some medicine to a sick Pokemon in Sunnytown, and since the only way to get there is over the bicycle bridge, she gives us a bike to ride. We beat the members of the Bridge Bike Gang and then save the Pokemon and are given the bike to keep as our reward. We should probably give this to Misty. Nah. Next, we find ourselves at the house of Imite, where Duplica and her Ditto are working to perfect its transform ability. Pikachu destroys it with Thunderbolt, but when we leave the building, he ends up getting sick. At the Pokemon Center, we find out that their PC system is down and there's a scientist trying to fix it. It's time for Banned episode number 2. He tells us some people stole his prototype Porygon and went into the digital world to steal the Pokemon there. I'm not going to show this part because there are a lot of flashing lights, which oddly enough is also why not only the episode but Porygon itself were banned from the anime. Long story short, it was Team Rocket and we beat them again. What's this Jinx doing here? Oh, Santa lost Jinx and his boot? Okay, I'll go to the North Pole, I guess. Alright, now I've seen it all. Not only do we save Christmas, we also get trapped in a freezing cave and almost die. Side note, Charmander should have been in that scene, but since I evolved him too early, he wasn't. As if that wasn't sad enough, it's now time to relive one of the most heartbreaking moments in history. We find a group of wild Pikachu and decide it would be best to leave ours with them where he'll be happier. As we're about to leave our buddy behind, he chases after us and rejoins the party. My heart is full. On the same route, we find a lone Eevee with a collar that says Stone Town. We bring it back to its owner, who explains that his brothers are trying to force him to evolve it, but he just wants to train the normal type. We beat each of the evolutions in battle, and then the brothers accept the youngest's decision. At a nearby farm, a Snorlax blocks the river water so the crops are drying up. Luckily, we find its hippie trainer who gives us the Pokeflute so we can wake it up and save the day. Next, we find ourselves in Dark City, where the inhabitants are afraid of Pokemon trainers. We learn that there are 2 rival groups here that are competing to have their gyms officially recognized by the Indigo League. After beating the Yas leader's Scyther and the Cast leader's Electabuzz, Nurse Joy reveals herself to be an inspector sent by the Pokemon League. She says that neither gym will become official until the people can set aside their differences and work together. The leaders promise to do everything in their power to reconcile, and we continue on. Outside the city, we stumble across a circus where the magician Melvin's assistant just quit on him. We offer to help, but once inside, he uses an Execute to hypnotize us into catching him an Executor. As thanks for the grass type, he decides to battle me, but Pidgeotto destroys his 2 Pokemon. Once a loser, always a loser. On our way to Cinnabar Island, we meet Cassandra and her cowardly Paris. She needs it to evolve so she can make a new remedy for her herb shop, but the bug is scared of battling. It runs away, and after we find it in a tree, it goes back to its trainer and becomes Parasect. Our adventure now brings us to a town where people are all agitated since they never sleep and stay out all night. Fortunately, we find Jigglypuff on the outskirts of town, who, after drinking some berry juice, sings to the citizens to force them to fall asleep. When they wake up, they're all in much better moods, but Jigglypuff got mad that nobody listened to its song, so it ran away. We bump into Gary, who tells us about the Great Fossil Rush, as prehistoric Pokemon have been spotted in a nearby cave. After traversing through hordes of Kabuto and Omanite, we come face to face with an Aerodactyl. The Dino Bird carries us out of the cave and then attacks in a fury, but Pikachu takes it down with Thunderbolt. After it flies away, we find this Togepi egg and throw it in the box. On Route 12, Pikachu seems to have something stuck in its throat, but there aren't any Pokemon centers in sight. We decide to bring him to a regular hospital, and thankfully Dr. Proctor is able to pull out the Leppa Berry and save our starter's life. Next up is another favorite of mine. We find a missing person poster of what appears to be a younger version of Team Rocket's James. Apparently he comes from an affluent family that has arranged for him to marry the daughter of another wealthy family, Jezebel. Did his parents actually fake their deaths in the anime so he would come home? I feel like I remember a detail like that. Jezebel pretty much plans on beating gentlemanly behavior into James, and since we actually feel bad for the guy, we decide to help him out. We take her on in a battle, giving the Rocket Duo a chance to run away, and then we follow suit. Unfortunately, she ends up finding them, but then James's childhood partner Growly chases her out of town, saving the day. As we continue on, we see a Farfetch'd, and after chasing it, we bump into a kid who steals our Pokemon. When we finally catch up, he says his Farfetch'd is too weak to do anything, so he uses it to steal from other trainers. We destroy the kid and his bird, and then he realizes that maybe he should just train to get stronger. Next, we beat a hiker, and then Bulbasaur starts to glow. We stumble upon the Bulbasaur Evolution Festival and its overseer Venusaur. All the Bulbasaur become Ivysaurs aside from ours. This appears to anger the leader, but then we defend our buddy, saying that he shouldn't be forced to evolve if he doesn't want to. Venusaur reflects on this and realizes the error of its ways. Then we win a doll set for Misty, a Meowth saves us from a landslide, and we interrupt a police training activity. Next up is the test to be admitted to the Pokemon League. If you get a passing score, you can actually enter the tournament without having 8 badges. Even though Ash fails in the anime, I actually passed this test, but don't worry, I won't skip the remainder of the journey. From here, I deposit Pikachu at the Pokemon Breeding Center since the workers promised they'll make him stronger. When I return, the workers are gone and there's a message on the computer to open the passageway to the secret holding area. In the basement, we find Pokemon locked in cages and eventually run into Team Rocket's Butch and Cassidy. They were assigned this job because the boss decided he couldn't rely on Jesse and James to steal our Pikachu. Pidgeotto and Squirtle make quick work of their Primeape Eradicate, and then we're given Pikachu back. One event I couldn't trigger was that this restaurant owner wanted to see a Ninetales. Since Brock isn't actually with us on this journey, I guess I should have caught a Vulpix like he has and kept it in the box. Anyway, we finally make it to Cinnabar Island, where this man tells us Blaine closed the gym because he was tired of battling tourists instead of real trainers. However, after saving the fossil research lab from Team Rocket, the innkeeper lets us know that Blaine built a secret gym in a place firefighters could never win. Inside of Cinnabar's volcano, the hospitality worker reveals himself to be Blaine in a wig. He offers us a chance at his badge in a 3-on-3 Pokemon battle, which I promptly lose. In the anime, Ash's Charizard is really the reason he loses here, but I already explained why I won't have one. As we re-enter the Molten Cave, Jesse and James show up claiming they planted a freeze bomb in the volcano. Their goal is to steal the gym leader's Magmar, but after being thwarted by me, Blaine says he'll give me a rematch at the top of the volcano. This battle will now be one-on-one, but instead of using Charizard, I try Squirtle. I lose quite a few times, but then finally get this attempt with Pikachu. Thunderbolt does over half of the fire type's health, and then instead of one-shotting with Fire Blast, Magmar uses Fire Punch, so Pikachu survives. Static's Paralysis is pretty irrelevant here since we outspeed, and then one more Thunderbolt gets us a win. As I'm getting ready to leave the island, a wild war turtle bumps into me with a worried look on its face. I follow the water type to a shore where Blastoise and a bunch of its pre-evolutions are stuck in their shells. Our Squirtle seems to want to help out, and as we get closer to the final form, we hear Jigglypuff singing inside its cannon. I play the Pokeflute to wake the turtles up, and then after dealing with the cranky Blastoise, we backtrack toward Viridian City. Unfortunately, I realized I wasn't recording for the Return to Cerulean Gym event and to see Seymour take off in a rocket ship with the Clefairy, but that one gave me a good laugh. I also missed out on Gary losing to the Viridian Gym leader, and now we see that Jesse and James were promoted to the position and given new Pokemon. After some help from Pidgeotto, Bulbasaur is able to take out their Machamp. Then Squirtle one-shots Rhydon with a critical hit Bubble Beam, and Pikachu takes down their last Pokemon Kingler with a Thunderbolt. After this victory, the duo also makes us take on their usual team, and then they accidentally blow themselves up and drop an Earth badge for us to take. Gary and I escape the gym as it collapses, and with that we have enough badges to qualify for the league. On our way home to show our mom, we run into a Mr. Mime and a performer named Stella who's trying to catch it. After getting her Psychic type inspired to perform with a Pokemon battle, we finally make it back to Pallet Town and find Mr. Mime in our house. Somehow it's already become part of the family, so I guess he's my dad now. In Professor Oak's lab, Gary and I compare progress and we're told that we have time for some training before the tournament starts. Then Oak asks us to visit Professor Westwood in Seafoam Islands to help learn about Slowpoke's evolution. To get this event to trigger, you actually need to fish here and catch a shelter yourself. Then you talk to Slowpoke and release the clam, and there you go, one perfectly crafted Slowbro. Westwood says the evolution occurs because the two have a symbiotic relationship. Slowpoke can stand on its hind legs with Shelter attached, and the clam gets to travel on land with Slowpoke. On the same island, we run into a Pikachu staring out at the ocean. We sail out toward where it's looking, but the current becomes too strong for us to handle and we faint. When we come to, we're being cared for by a man who introduces himself as Victor, a surfer and partner to the Pikachu Puka. He explains that the Pikachu can feel waves coming and the two of them have surfed all different kinds throughout the last 20 years. The only one they haven't conquered yet is the biggest of them all, Humunga Dunga. When Victor was a kid, there was a surfer named Jan who was able to place a flag at the top of a nearby mountain while shredding that very wave. He tried to do the same 20 years ago and failed miserably and would have given up surfing forever if he hadn't met Puka. Just then, the Pikachu runs into the house and alerts Victor that the wave is on its way. We watch as the two finally accomplish their goal and plant a flag next to Jan's. Really brings a tear to my eye, man. Just when I thought this game couldn't get any better, I realized the creator added in the events from Mewtwo Strikes Back. We open with a battle against the guy who kinda looks like a pirate and his movie-accurate team of Donphan, Venomoth, Golem, Pinsir, and Machamp. Then a Dragonite approaches us with an invitation to New Island to meet the greatest Pokemon trainer ever. Officer Jenny says the ferry has been cancelled due to the weather and that Nurse Joy from the nearby Pokemon Center hasn't been seen in months. We end up diving on Crappy's back to get to the island, and then we see Nurse Joy, but she claims she's always been in service of her master here. After getting acquainted with the other trainers who made it here and their teams, Nurse Joy tells us to let our Pokemon out of their balls. Side note, if I had a Charizard, he would also appear in this scene. Anyway, we're shocked to see that the Pokemon Master is actually a Pokemon himself, Mewtwo. He talks about how he plans to create a storm wiping out everything and basically restarting life on Earth. We challenge him to a battle, but his genetically altered level 75 starters destroy my team. All we can do is sit by and watch in horror as our Pokemon get stolen by Mewtwo and the balls are sent down a chute for cloning. I remember going to see this movie in theaters as a kid and actually crying watching Pikachu try his best to avoid capture. We jumped down after our Pokemon and saved them from the cloning machine, but the rest weren't so lucky. Then we barge back into the main room with the other trainers' Pokemon who jump into 1v1 battles against their doppelgangers. We try to challenge Mewtwo again, but then Mew appears before us. The two engage in battle, and as we try to stop them, their attacks turn us to stone. Pikachu fruitlessly tries to shock us back to life as all the surrounding Pokemon begin to cry. Their tears then swirl around us, and then we're revived. Then Mewtwo says the line everyone quotes in their yearbook, and Men in Black's our memory of any of this happening. Our next errand brings us to the Xanadu nursery where Bulbasaur gets poisoned from sniffing a rare plant. Luckily, Florina's Gloom is able to help, and then she gives us some fertilizer for our mom. Now we finally set off for Victory Road, and after a battle on the way there, the famous director Steven Spielbank tells us he's looking for a Pokemon to star in an upcoming movie with Wigglytuff. Since we don't have Misty's Psyduck, I couldn't get this event to trigger, so we'll move on. We hear the Elite Four member Bruno is training at Mount Hideaway, and after bumping into him, we're told that he's looking for a giant Onix that was spotted here. Just then, the rock monster appears and battles us. We make quick work of Onix, and then Bruno realizes that it was angry because a Sandslash was stuck in one of its crevices. After freeing the Hedgehog, the Elite Four member catches the rock snake and goes on his way. As we progress through the mountains, we meet Eve and her father who are researching the ruins of the ancient Pokemopolis. After finding some artifacts, a giant Alakazam and Gengar appear on the mountain, locked in battle. We're teleported into what appears to be a giant Pokeball, and after getting out, we find Jigglypuff observing a statue of an ancient version of itself. The normal type sings to the giant Pokemon, which makes them return to their Pokeballs, which were the artifacts we had uncovered. With that puzzle solved, we're challenged by a ninja kid named Otoshi and his Marowak. We beat him, and then he tells us that all of his badges were stolen by Team Rocket. Marowak abandons his partner, and once we recover the badges, he returns. If you ask me, this Marowak is kind of a bad friend, but maybe that's just my opinion. As we're heading up the path to the League, a crowd forms and starts to cheer. We get jealous of the torchbearer, but then the League Commissioner, Mr. Goodshow, decides to let us take the flame the rest of the way. At the top of the path, Team Rocket tries to stop us from lighting the main fire, but then Moltres pops out of the flame, sends them packing, and signals the beginning of the tournament. Our first opponent is Juggler Mandy on the water field. His Executor goes down to a pair of wing attacks from Pidgeotto, and he sends in Seadra. After a Water Pulse, Bulbasaur's Seed Bomb brings it low, and Seadra is swapped out for Golbat. I bring Pikachu into a Giga Drain, and then a Thunderbolt followed by a Quick Attack takes care of our first round opponent. Our next match is against a youngster named Kevin on the rock field. I lead Squirtle into his Electrode, so it's an immediate switch to Bulbasaur to tank Thunderbolt. Next turn, the electric type explodes, and Bulbasaur actually hangs on with 8 HP. Cubone is next, so I decide to go back to Squirtle. I missed my first Hydro Pump, but after surviving Bone Meringue, we connect our next for the KO. Last is Nidorino, so I go to my only healthy Pokemon, Pikachu. Also, I guess I'm pretty underleveled for this, but it's going okay. Thunderbolt plus Sand damage come up just short of the knockout, but next turn Quick Attack wins our second round matchup. Third is a fight with Pete Pebbleman from Pewter City on the ice field. His lead is Graveler, so I swap Pikachu into Bulbasaur to eat Brick Break. After surviving Giga Drain, the rock self-destructs, which takes our grass type down with it. I send out Pikachu to square off against Cloyster, so a single Thunderbolt takes it down. Last is Arcanine, so I bring in Squirtle, who dodges Fire Blast and hits Hydro Pump for 50% of the dog's health. Unfortunately, Sunny Day means our next Hydro Pump doesn't kill, but after surviving Crunch, we win the battle with Bubble Beam. Gary had a match finish at the same time as us and actually ended up losing. He says if he couldn't win, there's no way we will, and leaves the venue, but we'll prove him wrong. Round 4 is against Jeanette on the grass field. Her lead Beedrill goes down to 2 Thunderbolts and a Quick Attack from Pikachu, but it does manage to land Toxic first. Next up is Scyther, who double teams twice, so we only hit 1 Thunderbolt before dying to a Slash. I bring in Pidgeotto, and luckily after 2 more double teams and a Swords Dance, we connect a Wing Attack to knock the bug out before things get ugly. Last is a level 70 Bellsprout, but before it can do any damage, we take it out with 3 Wing Attacks. As we exit the arena, we meet a boy named Richie who also just won his 4th round match. Just then, there's an announcement for trainers to bring their Pokemon to the front gates for inspection, but of course it's just a Team Rocket scheme. Richie reveals he has a Charmander and Pikachu of his own that blast the group away, and then he goes back inside. We promise to make our next battle the best one we've ever had, and then there's another announcement, but this time it's a phone call for me. It's our new friend asking us to meet him right by the exit of Victory Road so he can tell us something important about Pikachu. This turns out to be one last ditch effort by Team Rocket to steal my Pokemon, but after beating them, I'm gonna be late for my match. I think you have to have a Pidgeotto to continue to progress, as ours flies us into the main stadium where Richie is waiting to battle. We lead Pidgeotto against his Butterfree, but the game takes away 40 health from all of my Pokemon for this battle. Butterfree puts our bird to sleep and then takes it down before we can wake up. Now I go to Pikachu, who's able to outspeed for a one-shot. Charmander is next, so I go to Squirtle, who hangs on through a Dragon Claw and destroys the fire type with Hydro Pump. Last is Richie's own Pikachu, so I let Squirtle go down to Double Edge and then bring mine back in. Thunderbolt leaves us with 6 HP as I retaliate with a big slam. I could have won this battle with Quick Attack, but sticking to the script, I decide to let Sparky knock me out and end my run. After the loss, we wish Richie the best of luck, and Professor Oak tells us how proud he is. We find out Richie lost his very next battle, and then we swear to each other that we'll both become Pokemon Masters one day. With that conversation over, we've successfully played through the first 80 episodes of the Pokemon anime, completing the entire Indigo League arc. This game does continue through most of the Orange Islands, but I think this video is already long enough as is. I had such a great trip down memory lane playing this game, and whether you grew up watching the show or you're newer to Pokemon, I think that this is an experience every fan should have. I give so much credit to the creator of this ROM hack, Metapod23, for all the incredible work put in to make the game as anime accurate as possible. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that like button and subscribe if you want to see more. Also, let me know if you want to see other ROM hacks that follow the anime. I think there's a complete Orange Island game out there somewhere. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.